That press conference on Saturday by Ralph Northam had to be one of the most bizarre, ludicrous press conferences for a crisis management that I've ever seen in covering politics, maybe in my lifetime. That was so ridiculous. And then the reporter, you talk about fake news and covering for the governor and covering for the Democrats. How about the reporter who asked him if he still moonwalked? Like, instead of saying, tell me why you apologized explicitly, and reading the words back to him, which is the question I would have asked if I was called on. Oh, here's what you said. You said you apologized for this action 24 hours ago. Now you're saying you didn't do it. Why'd you apologize? Just walk us through that. Instead, they ask him, do you still moonwalk? What a asinine question. This is the fake news garbage you deal with. It's really absurd. And I don't know what the governor's going to do. I personally don't think he's going to resign. And quite frankly, if you're a Republican, honestly, like, take all the crap out of it politically, you don't want him to resign, because his presence there is going to depress voters in 2019 and give the Republicans a chance to keep the House. I mean, that's just my cold political analysis. I don't think he's going to resign. I've talked to enough people in his administration, and they're just dug in. So it is what it is. Joining us now, Emily Brewer. I don't know how he can continue, but I don't think he's getting out, and the impeachment thing is ridiculous. That's not going to happen. Also, they're now attacking Justin Fairfax. We have heard, not a fact, just rumor. We have heard the Political Action Committee, the collective, put a piece out last night saying that under the table scuttlebutt against Fairfax was false. So we'll see how all that plays out. This is hardball politics. He's trying to save his mansion job. We'll see what happens. Breaking this down for us, we got a big lineup today. Let's start with Emily Brewer, House of Delegates member. She is in her second session. She was first elected in 2017. She represents the Suffolk area. Delegate Emily Brewer, the youngest House of Delegates member in Richmond. Emily, great to have you.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Never better. Emily, did you see the press conference of the governor on Saturday?
I did. I'll tell you what, it was pretty painstaking to watch, especially I think we were left after that press conference more confused than any of us probably started after the revelation of the Friday video.
Wow. I've got to tell you, what a bizarre press conference. Emily, as a House of Delegates member, what do you think the governor should do and why?
Well, I want to start by saying this, is that we're at the halfway point of our General Assembly session. We still have a ton of the people's business to do, and this serves as more than just a distraction. But looking back at the Commonwealth's history, we have a long and storied past in the Commonwealth. And I don't think the governor approached his Saturday press conference, especially with the seriousness and the tone that he should have. And, he's a man without a party right now. Every single major leader from both sides of the aisle has denounced his actions and has asked for his resignation. So that's where I stand.
It's interesting what you said, a man without a party. I kind of agree with that. I also agree with what you said in that the tone of his press conference, it didn't have the seriousness. I was trying to think what made it ludicrous. Obviously, the whole shoe polish and Michael Jackson, the whole thing was absurd. And everybody knows in politics the reason he did that is because he knew that was coming out next. So he weaved that preemptive strike into that press conference because he knew that somebody was going to say, wait a minute, I saw you in San Antonio dressed up as Michael Jackson, and that would have been the end. So he used the press conference to throw that out there ahead of time. So now it's old news. And the way he did it, I thought, was effective if that was his objective. But you're right. The tone of it was almost, what's the right word here, Emily? It was not serious, right?
It was almost a little bit too lighthearted, I'd say.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, too lighthearted. So, and now we've heard rumors. The Political Action Committee, the Collective, said they sent a press release out last night. I'm going to read it to you. It said, we've also learned through various sources, and the Collective is a progressive political action committee in Washington. This was put out by Quentin James and Stephanie Brown James, co-founders of the Collective. They said, we've also learned through various sources that Governor Northam's team and advisors have now decided to start attacking Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax by spreading lies to reporters and state leaders in an attempt to quell support for the Lieutenant Governor Fairfax as governor. Northam's impending successor should he resign. They go on to say this pathetic method of attack, along with the racist photos released on Friday, are entirely beneath the office. And hereby saying, in addition, the Collective strongly encourages the public to be wary of impending factless lies that are sure to plague Fairfax as people contemplate his ascension to the governorship. Do you have any comment on that?
John, this is the first time hearing this, but I've got to tell you is that we have a serious matter of business in front of us with the governor, and that's what everybody, including the press, should be laser focused on until we get it resolved. I mean, because this has just already gone on, I think, frankly, too far.
So you think he should resign?
Absolutely, unequivocally. You know, we are, just imagine at this point, when you have had both sides of the aisle, all major leaders denounce what you have done and also have asked for the resignation, everything from presidential candidates all the way down to the Republican Party, House of Delegates, the Senate, both sides of the aisle. How do you think you can be effective?
I really don't know. I mean, what happens if he vetoes something? What happens if he gets into it with Republicans? I mean, I think he's in a very dangerous position here because I think people have said, he no longer has the moral authority to lead. I mean, I think it's just more political. I mean, he's like, you nailed it. He's a man without a party, basically. I don't think the Democrats care now what he says. The Republicans are going to be challenging him on a variety of things. If he vetoes something, how does that work, right? I mean, he's just not, what's he going to go on? Do a press conference describing his vetoes? Nobody's interested in that. They're going to be asking him why he's still there. So I think it puts him in a very precarious position.
Well, we're in uncharted waters at this point, and, I would like to think that this will be resolved pretty quickly, and that's my hope.
When you say resolved quickly, how do you see it being resolved? He already said he isn't going to resign.
I would hope that cooler heads will prevail, and he will eventually come to that conclusion. Like I said, a man without a party, when he looks around and tests the waters, I don't know if he does have any support. I don't see it. But, this is in direct relation to earlier in the week, obviously, which is probably most angering to me. The governor comes out in support of unfettered access to abortion. And, I mean, just his week has just been tumultuous at best. It's probably not even the best word.
Well, Emily, we're with Emily Brewer, House of Delegates member. She is the youngest House of Delegates member serving in Richmond. She represents the Suffolk area. Emily, as a young person, as a millennial looking at this, what's your reaction from a more personal standpoint, not the political ramifications of it, but as a millennial, I mean, how does this make you feel, this whole episode?
Well, the week just started on such a sour note, with the Democratic Party standing with and the governor with unfettered access to abortion. So the week started on absolutely just a horrible note. So we start with that. We end up towards the end of the week with the governor coming out, or the story coming out about the governor. And now, we're going back into the chamber today to do the people's business, and we have this to deal with.
Well, when you say you have this to deal with, I mean, you're just going to go forward, right? Keep doing what you're doing. So as a House of Delegates member, part of the Republican majority in caucus, I mean, this isn't really going to affect your bills or what you're doing, right? I mean, the only impact the governor has now is whether he vetoes something or signs it, right? So it's not going to really affect your work between now and the end of the month, right?
Well, no, it won't, John. But, you know, here's the problem, is that we got a glimpse this week at where the Democratic Party is going, where their messaging is, and frankly, it's very scary. I mean, you know, we're talking about, you know, abortion on demand, basically, in the third trimester with some of the bills that were dropped this week. And, you know, me as a millennial, as someone who was adopted, I have always encouraged adoption over abortion. And frankly, my heart breaks because I never thought I'd see the day that in my Commonwealth that I've lived in all my life is turning into mini New York or California. I never thought I would see that day. And these are the exact same proposals that Governor Northam supported. And, you know, it's just, it was a difficult week to say the least. And I think we got a glimpse that if the Democrats take the, you know, if they're so, you know, thinking that they will take the House, this is a glimpse into the future. And that's a scary, scary proposition.
Emily, you were adopted. I think you're the only House of Delegates member in there that's been adopted, I believe. I actually am not. There's 3 or 4 of us, I believe. All right,
including my good friend, Delegate Chris Collins.
You were adopted, and you had to go through the governor's, I guess, I don't know what it was, defense of Kathy Tram's bill, where he said, you know, the baby after his delivered, it would be made comfortable, resuscitated if necessary, and then a decision would be made for a person who was adopted. How did that make you feel?
Absolutely terrified. I mean, to think that we are in a place where we have the leader of our Commonwealth saying that he supports infanticide is frankly disgusting and abhorrent. And furthermore, that those comments were made so easily. I think that's probably, I'm sure you'd agree, John, I think that was probably the scariest part of it. That this wasn't an interview that was an interrogation. That was offered and described.
You're right. I mean, he was, I mean, he had a friendly interviewer in Julie at WTOP, and WTOP, they asked the governor segment, you know, was certainly not meant to be confrontational. I mean, she asked a pretty matter-of-fact question for him to clarify Kathy Tram's bill, which many people found to be abhorrent. I personally thought it was just a bridge too far for me to deal with. Let me read you a text here from William in Chesapeake, who says, "Hey, Emily, this is meant to distract from the real damaging issue for Democrats, which is post-birth abortion." Sorry about that. He says, "I bet they already knew about this in the yearbook and said nothing, the Democrats." I don't really see that, William. I think if the Democrats had known about this, I don't think he would have been the nominee. I mean, you got to think, Emily, he had a very tough primary fight against the very liberal Tom Perriello. I would think that if Perriello's staff had this information, that it would have been out there, or if Ed Gillespie, his opponent in 2017 for governor, had the information, it would have been out there. So I don't think they had it.
Well, you know, I absolutely don't believe that, John, but I will tell you this, is I have a supreme amount of respect for my friends across the aisle, especially in the Legislative Black Caucus, and I know those people, and I know what they believe in, and I don't think they would have ever stood for this for a second, so I don't believe that for a second.
I don't either. I mean, I don't think there's any conspiracy type thing going on here, because if any of these candidates had it that ran against Northam, either in the primary or for governor, this would have been out there. I think it just simply got missed. John Fredericks Radio Network, we want to thank Emily Brewer for being with us. Emily, I got about a couple more minutes. I really appreciate you coming on. What is your number one objective personally from now to the end of this session? What is the number one thing you want to get done?
Well, actually, what I did this year, John, is I started a foster care caucus, a bipartisan group with Senator Monty Nason, and our goal is to review the entire foster care system in Virginia. We already have put together some bills on our tracker that we are working to get passed this year. I'm sure you saw Senator Reeves as well, did his foster care omnibus bill. And so our goal is to, especially after that awful jailer report, to come together and work long-term to make sure that we're not 50th in the country like we are right now, but we move towards the front of the pack when it comes to the foster care system in Virginia.
Emily,
that is the top of my priority list.
Is that something you think you can get done in 2019, or is that going to extend into 2020?
I think it's a long-term goal, but we have several bills this year that look like they're going to be surviving crossover and bills going from the House to the Senate and the Senate to the House. So I feel really good about making some big strides this year, and I think this will be a continual working group that we're going to address the issues as they come up.
John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth across America. Great to have you with us, and thank you, Emily, for your time today. Emily Brewer, the youngest House of Delegates member in Richmond, Republican Suffolk. Emily, thanks for being with us.